Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Breakout Session F1, the Sustainable World Kitchen Culinary Stage. I see some people are still trickling in, so we're going to give you a couple minutes to get situated before we get started here. I hope you had a great time with our opening panel, amazing group of chefs to kick us off. So, and with that, we're going to get started, I think. Looks like we've got a good number in here. So this is Breakout Session F1, the Sustainable World Kitchen Culinary Stage. We're going to be talking about food waste reduction and recovery. So our moderator for today's panel will be Kate Cox, editor of The Counter. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, thank you. And nice to see all 16 of you slowly trickling up. As Katie said, I am Kate Cox. I am editor-in-chief of The Counter. If you're not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit newsroom, formerly, as of about 6 months ago, based in New York, and now, like many of you, fully remote. We have editors in LA, in Denver, in New York, and reporters across the country. And we investigate the forces shaping how and what America eats. You can find us at thecounter.org, and we are tweeting at The Counter. We report the news with context and analysis every day, and you can sign up for our free twice-weekly newsletter, which goes out on Tuesdays and Thursdays right from our homepage. So that's all I'm going to say for my end, because we have lots to get to, including a demo, which I'm excited will kick off our conversation. So let me please hand that over to chef and self-described rookie dad, Joel Gamran, who is author of the cookbook Cooking Scrappy and is also executive director of Ready for Seconds. So enjoy the demo, and I will see you all after with the rest of our panelists.
Thank you, Kay, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm such a proud CIA alum, and it's a total pleasure to be in front of everyone. Welcome, welcome. I'm beaming in from Seattle, Washington, in a garage that I have transformed into a little kitchen studio. I've been doing culinary events, classes, kind of two-way conversation thing, which I'm really digging. But I think that the ethos of where I am right now is really what we're talking about today, which is taking something like a garage and turning it into something amazing, right? It might have been a byproduct, it might have been an afterthought, but now it's spectacular. I mean, I love my little workshop right now. And so that is really the lifestyle, the ethos, and the approach that I'm going to be talking about during the demo, and then we're going to get to on the panel, which I'm really excited about. Growing up as a young chef, I started cooking professionally in my teens. Every chef, and if you're a chef on this right now or a food service worker, everyone knows that nothing goes to waste. It's just crazy to do that. And everyone knows that, and this is kind of something that was instilled in me, that chefs said, anyone can take a ribeye, add some salt to it, sear it, grill it, whatever, serve it, and look like a culinary genius. But who can do that with carrot peels? And who can do that with maybe a limp-looking zucchini? And who can do that with chicken skin, with all the byproduct and all the afterthought, all the forgotten, all the potential? And so that's really what this demo is about. I thought we'd have a little fun. My cookbook, Cooking Scrappy, 100 recipes that really talks about things like this, inspiration around mango pits, ears of corn that have been stripped, and how do you use those? Lobster shells, not just in stock, but other applications. So I've got a book here, and when I was on a book tour across the country a couple of years ago, I did a game. I thought I'd do this here, which is Stump the Scrap. So in the comment section, it'd be really cool during this demo if you put a scrap that maybe you don't know what to do with. It has to be edible. That's the rule. So you can't put like a rock there. I don't know what to do with a rock. But as long as it's edible, if you can stump me, I will send you a copy of this book. So really excited. You've got about 6 minutes, 7 minutes or so to think of those. While you're thinking of those, I'm going to get started with this demo. And I thought it would be really cool to take one product that's totally forgotten and kind of show you guys the possibilities. And so in this case, I've got pickle juice, which Dana, who's going to be talking on the panel, says she has a jar of. I think we all have this at some point in time when you open up the fridge. And, my kid, he's 1 year old. He loves these little pickle chips. But what do you actually do with the juice? So often that just goes down the drain. And as people who love food, respect food, this is just a jar of gold, right? And so here are some thoughts. First and foremost, you can re-pickle using your pickle juice. So literally it is all set to re-preserve, rehydrate, anything you got. So I've got some beautiful goat horn peppers I got from a little farmer's market this weekend. So literally I have a pot on a really ripping hot boil. I'm going to add some in. Really simple. Literally did nothing to this pickle juice. It's literally just a dill flavored pickle juice. And then I'm going to add my peppers in. You could add onions. You could add carrots. You could add celery. Did one fall? I'm going to have to get that. Nothing goes to waste in this kitchen. And then I've got a little chili flake, right? You can add a little spice to this, right? You could add more garlic if you want to bump that up. You could add some fresh herbs. But I love this application of just kind of repickling. You can use the brine probably, I would say, once or twice, depending on what you're repickling. But you guys can kind of see, I'll grab kind of these peppers out. I just kind of bring them to the boil. Once they're to the boil, I pour the brine right back over the peppers. Hopefully you guys can see that. And it smells actually really good. And these over a taco, over anything grilled is just magical. And I did not have to go get some vinegar. I did not have to go get some sugar because all that's already in the brine. So repickling, step one, really good inspiration. Step two is, how about a pickle juice aioli? So again, you think about what's in pickle juice: vinegar, sugar, spices. So we like to kind of bump up our emulsified sauces like that anyway. So I already started some right here, but I've got an egg. Really simple, right? I'm going to whisk that up. Everyone knows on this call, I love talking to industry because I don't have to go through step by step, but everyone knows when you whisk, it's not a circle. It's more, front to back, all that good stuff. And then I'm going to just throw in some vegetable oil, also known as soy oil, which I love. And I'm just going to whisk this up. And then once it gets to kind of a place where I'm happy with, where I'll show you guys, so nice and thick, I take my pickle juice and just give a little shot. And again, like typically it's probably a lemon, a lime, maybe a little bit of white wine vinegar, but why not pickle juice? Why wouldn't that work, right? I mean, it brings everything that those bring plus more. So I love that idea. I've got some snap peas here. There's no question I'm going to be eating this with my wife for lunch on the West Coast, so she'll be digging this. We'll be dipping this in, but really simple: snap peas, pickle juice, aioli. So second idea. Third idea. I love pickle juice because of its tenderizing capability. Unbelievable. So I've got a pork. This is a shoulder steak. So I like to use cuts of meats that are not commonly found because they're cheaper, which is fantastic, and the animal doesn't go to waste. It's a really tough sell, unless it's a pork chop or a pork loin, to get the American public behind it. So I'm a big, big proponent of trying to find those off cuts, the cuts that maybe people don't know what to do with, because we got to support our butchers and our meat counters. So I've got my little shoulder steak in a little Tupperware. I'm just going to pour over the pickle juice. And typically I'd wait about 12 hours for this to brine. You could do this with your turkey for Thanksgiving. I've got some beautiful parsley stems that I'm just going to kind of slap in my hand just to kind of bust up the oils. You can use garlic paper in here, onion skins. Don't throw any of that away because it's just soaking and infusing. So if you want to kind of knock up the flavor of that pickle juice, you can. But I would let that sit for about 12 hours. And what that's going to do to this very lean piece of meat is it's going to make it that much more juicy. We all know what a brine does to meat. It just kind of, enhances it. It plumps it. It gives it so much more liveliness. And again, so much more juice. So I grilled a little bit of one right here. I love it. Typically they're really dry, but with the brine, it really makes a difference. I've got a little salad here: cranberries, nuts, little farro. In the spirit of menus of change, I would probably just put about 3 ounces of this on there and make it more of a condiment as opposed to just like meat salad. But love this. Pickle juice, brine, pork steak, shoulder steak, unbelievable. And again, you can use that brine for anything. I thought we would kind of cap off, so that's the third idea, cap off our fourth idea with a cocktail, because We're in a pandemic. I'm cooking in a garage, for God's sake. I need a cocktail, okay? I got a 1-year-old running around. So really, really simple. I'm gonna make a pickle jartini to my cookbook. I love this. I grew up in a Jewish household, and we had Yom Kippur, which you fast for a day in October. And at the end of the day, you have this thing called break the fast, where you eat just unbelievably. And in my family, it's been a tradition to take a shot of vodka, and your stomach is empty, and then you chase it with pickle juice, which is a pickleback. I turned it into a martini. Let's just say you feel very good before you go eat at the buffet. So I'm gonna grab a little triple sec, and I'm not measuring because I just said I've got a 1-year-old and it's a pandemic. So if a little bit extra goes in, we can adjust. A little bit of vodka, and then our pickle juice. Really, really simple. And it just balances extremely nicely. You could throw some ice in here, right? I'm gonna shake this up. Really, really simple. You guys get the idea. But it actually comes out to be a pretty rad color, and it's really, really refreshing. You could throw a little, one of the pickles that you made before right in there, but this is your pickle juice martini. And Dana had a great idea. One of the panelists who's gonna talk with us, she, with her pickle juice, was thinking about a Bloody Mary. Genius idea. I love doing salad dressings with it. Caesar salads, things like that. Unbelievable. So don't forget your pickle juice. Love your pickle juice. There's 4 ideas for you. I hope that brought a little bit of inspiration, and it's a good lead into what we're talking about. But I don't want to forget, we have a contest on the line. So I'm going to come a little bit closer to the computer because I want to see what everyone's saying. Okay, edamame pods, bones, salsa feast skins. Ooh, that might take it. Okay, so let's just talk about this. So cauliflower ribs and cores, unbelievable just to kind of grate those up. You can make little cauliflower fritters, pancakes. I love it. I saw one that says cherry pits. Take your cherry pits and soak them in vodka. They have kind of this almondy flavor that's amazing. What else do we got? Bones. Obviously, you're going to make stock. That's a no-brainer. I'm going to have to say I'm giving it to. It looks like Keith Fuller with salsa. Steph, I don't know what to do with that, but that is a great stump. So Keith, you are going home with the book. I hope you enjoy it. And you guys, thanks so much for tuning in. With that, I'm going to take it back to Kate Cox, who's going to take us into an amazing panel. Thanks, guys.
Hello there. So at this point, I am working for the martini. That is the reason that I will complete this panel. Thank you very much for that. And welcome to the many of you who joined during the demo. I'm going to introduce our other 2 guests, and we'll get this panel started. A couple quick housekeeping notes. We will not get to everything. I'm sad about it. We have 20 minutes. We will tick off as many of these key points as we want to. Also, if you have a burning question, drop it in the chat, and I'm going to try to work it into the discussion. We'll see if we can be that nimble at this point. It'd be better if I was actually a little bit tipsy from the martini, little lighter on the feet. Okay, so moving on, I want to introduce Dana Gunders, who is Executive Director of Refed and author of The Waste-Free Kitchen. And there she is. Hello, Dana. And Derek Azevedo, who is Executive Vice President of Bowles Farming Company. And there is Derek. Okay, we've gotten through the tech, so now we can do the talk. I want to just provide a little bit of a narrative frame for this discussion as far as we go. And also, Anthony, the answer to your question regarding Joel's book, Cooking Scrappy is the name of the book. So when we got this panel assigned to us a long ago, the world was a different place. Many of you probably had food initiatives, food waste initiatives, and sustainability initiatives that you'd been moving for a long time. Many of you had probably also made a ton of progress on them. We now know things are halted at best. Some of you may be reopening, some of you may be thinking about reopening. So we're going to do some practical solutions, but I want to offer up this narrative frame, which is how should we be thinking about food waste now? I think on Twitter, I just said, how the heck should we be thinking about food waste now? So we've got this discussion to kind of touch on 3 key areas of thematic thinking. The first one is who that we can't see is actually benefiting from the system that creates so much food waste. The second is how do we give people the opportunity, and by people I mean all of us, shoppers, eaters, how do we give people the opportunity to make impactful decisions about what they're buying? And third, we're going to look at what businesses did better than the pandemic than others, and what are some of the natural decisions that they're making right now as they look into reopening. So I want to start the conversation with Derek. And many of you are going to recall sort of height of the pandemic intensity in March and April. We were seeing images of, in some cases, produce dumping, in some cases, milk dumping. And that kind of imagery is hugely alarming to the public. We did a lot of reporting at the counter on what was really behind that and what was driving produce dumping at the time. But Derek, I wanted to have you talk a little bit more about it, because they were really the result of what you've called the messy middle of the food system. And I wanted to have you speak to that a bit, about the relationship between growers, buyers, and retailers that you think is the true origin of the food waste problem.
Great, thank you, Kate. It's as a farmer, I field that question quite a bit. What are you doing about food waste? And there's a lot of folks that participate in our food supply between consumer and farmer that have a role to play here. And so when I look at it as a farm, I look at it like when there's cantaloupes in the field, they're already wasted. A lot of folks will say, why don't you just take them to the food bank? Well, that's fine, but I have to, pay, expensive cost to get them harvested. I have to pay the freight to get them to the food. There's a lot of cost involved at the farmer level that just makes that, just cost prohibitive. And so, when I look at it, I look back and like, let's gather all the people who participate from, the growing of that cantaloupe, for instance, all the way through to the consuming citizen who's going to eat that. And when you take a look at, when I made the decision to plant that field, I didn't know how many other farmers were planning on planting that field. I didn't know how many other acres of cantaloupes would be out there. I don't know how many people are intending to buy. I don't know what the average sales are on some of my customers. So there's an opportunity there for people that have the answers to some of those things to participate and say, over the last 5 years, here's the volume of cantaloupes we've moved at these stores. Here's, let's reach out to some farmers. How many tons per acre are you going to get? Let's create a smarter contract where we can prevent that excess food from being planted to begin with, and optimize those resources to perhaps plant something else that may be in need. And let's take into account that, this is a natural system that we're working with. Cantaloupes grow in all different sizes. Some of them you may be familiar with, boxes of 12 or 9 or even 6s, but there's some of these tweener sizes where when the markets do get a little tight, it's we only want 9s and we'll leave all the 12s in the field. And I think this is where we can loop in the fact that the people we're marketing to are smart humans, and everyone will say, well, you can't have all large cantaloupes because everyone will just buy the big ones and they won't buy the little ones. But I think this is a wonderful opportunity to take that middle of food, the retailers and some of the stores, and say, hey, look, here's a bin of cantaloupes. They're all different sizes, and here's your opportunity to help with food waste. And let's loop in a larger audience. Let's give people the opportunity to be impact shoppers instead of saying, I want everything this one size, when we all know that the natural environment creates things of all different sizes. And let's give people the opportunity to make an impact with their purchases. Let's be smarter with our contracts, because, in my opinion, that food waste begins with customer specs.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was gonna say let's actually mention that terminology, because what you're really talking about is buyer specs.
Yeah.
And just not, without knowing who all is in the audience, I would love to have you just talk a little bit about what that actually is. Because when I first got you on the phone to prep for this panel, I said, tell me where you think food waste starts. And you flatly said, food waste begins with buyer specs. Retailers are rewarded for a glut in the market. If you could do the elevator pitch on what that actually means as we get further into the discussion, then I can have Dana and Joel talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, certainly. So, a lot of the modern food supply rewards aesthetically pleasing produce. And I think this is an opportunity where organic has done a fantastic job of introducing less than perfect produce into the marketplace that markets at a premium. And I think there's a similar opportunity in conventional produce. There's a lot of high quality stuff that that, you know, all the stuff I take home to my family and my friends are things that would have otherwise been wasted. And so again, when it goes back to, you know, me guessing at how many acres of watermelons to plant, how many acres of cantaloupes to plant, how much, you know, these are all specialty crops that are incredibly expensive to grow. And if there's an oversupply in the market, then it drives price down. And there's a lot of, you know, silent stakeholders in the middle that it's working for. And so that's why I say, you know, let's create some smarter contracts where we come out and say, look, here's how much stuff I want you to buy. I want to buy, or I plan to sell. Help me figure out how much to plant. Let's work together to figure out just how to do that at a level that's optimal. There's certainly times where farmers make a lot of money on crops that are really short, but there's more often the case where farmers lose a lot when you know, they plant a crop and they have to sell at a loss just to recoup some of their money back. And I just think that's a risk that's pushed all the way down to the farm level that can be avoided with some open-minded thinking about how to strategically approach this problem in a little bit better way. That's why I love working with chefs. I mean, folks like Joel and Dana. I mean, they're programmed to say yes, whereas, you know, produce buyers are programmed to say no, and to deal with some of the inconsistencies in what comes out of the field. So I want to work with more folks that are programmed to say yes.
Dana, Joel, did you have anything you wanted to talk about regarding buyer specs, or even just sort of speaking to, well, actually, you know what, let's go to you, Joel, because you also do a lot of work in how to message to eaters. And one of the things that Derek and I talked about was respecting the intelligence of shoppers. You know, the long-time sort of retailer, food service buyer assumption was that consumers just don't want to be bothered. They don't want to know, that they want to be told what to buy. And so you don't give folks too many options. You show them a nice round melon and 27 nice round melons that are the exact same size next to it, and we're done. But we talked a little bit about how you appeal to people's desire to have better information and how we give them better opportunities to make impactful decisions while they're shopping or even in the home kitchen. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much that Derek just said that I agree with. Two pieces that really stuck out was, one, that people are a lot smarter than I think that the food industry has given them credit for. And the second is that chefs are kind of wired for this, and that's why Derek likes to work with them, while retailers and maybe people in kind of the chain are not so much, and we got to get them there. And so I agree with both of those points. So first and foremost, in order to get someone on board to cook like this and to be okay with buying a melon that looks maybe unconventional or a little bit off, we have to inspire them and educate them. And you don't do that. I've done this for many years now with a cooking show and a cookbook. I got great advice from the executive producer of my show, Katie Couric, who said, listen, I deliver the news all day. She goes, really, it's important to lead with a story that connects to people personally, and then you can bring in the news. And I think that rings completely true with food waste. You should never lead with food waste. You should lead with a story. You should lead with inspiration. You should lead with a recipe, with helpful content. And that kind of brings people in, and then they're willing to listen to a lot of the spec issues. Oh, getting a little feedback. Not on my end.
I don't think it's on my end.
Everyone on mute. There we go. Someone was on mute. So I think once you inspire someone, they're willing to listen. Some companies that have done some amazing jobs at this, Imperfect Foods, if you guys are familiar with them, incredible company out of San Francisco. And they lead with content. They started by putting little googly eyes on misshaped squashes and eggplants, and people really connected to that, and they wanted to know more. Why does that eggplant have a nose? And they leaned into it, and then they were able to tell their food waste story. I also think transparency is going to be kind of the future, and it's something that people really want right now. I think a lot of us are having a tough time trusting things, all different types of things, specifically food. And I think when a company or a restaurant or a food service worker is able to be transparent, whether it's a retailer, whatever, there's a lot of success there. I tell this story of a nut milk that I've worked with and consulted with, and they were sourcing either conventional yet local almonds in California, or they had this option to get organic almonds in Spain. And so, like, think about the environmental impact. It's a tough decision. Do you stay local and not get the plane? At the same time, they're conventional, or do you support organic? So instead of just deciding in a bubble, they let their consumers decide. They said, we're having this problem. We need to open it up and let you guys decide. And so I think that people want to be a part of the conversation. And I think whoever lets people in is going to win. So I think when it comes to communicating around food waste, transparency and leading with things other than food waste, leading with helpful content is really the big key here.
Great. And so, you know, thinking of from consumer now I like to say there really isn't a consumer. That's sort of marketing speak and sales speak to some degree. We're all consumers, we're all eating. So many of us are making these decisions, both for our businesses and for our own families. So Dana, I wanted to have you talk now about the larger piece for people who are reopening, for businesses in general of all kinds. You told me when we talked on the phone that one of the biggest lessons of the pandemic had to do with flexibility. You want to talk a little bit more about that? What did we take away from this in terms of food waste?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those to that messy middle, actually, that Derek was pointing at. You know, when we were seeing all those photos of all that food going to waste, the reality of what was happening is those businesses were kind of locked into a particular market or a particular type of processing or a particular type of packaging. And we saw that businesses that were able to be more flexible throughout the pandemic have really been able to make it and more seamlessly than others. And you've seen the others really trying to create some flexibility in their models. So, you know, Imperfect's a great example. They could take any food that was extra, right, and offer it to their consumers in a box and get it to their door. Restaurants that are all of a sudden starting to offer some retail out their door. Those, you know, when no one could find flour or yeast, but you could actually go to a bakery because they were buying it in 50-pound, you know, bags and offering it up in smaller bags. I mean, that's creativity, that's flexibility, and that is something that I hope will outlast the pandemic, because there is always going to be this surplus, right? So setting yourself up in a way that you can flexibly kind of deal with it. And I like to think about it, at least for this group, the chef's special, right? What is the chef's special of your model, whatever that means? And it's that place where you can throw in whatever is left over, whatever you have, and use it. The other thing I'll just mention, because I know time is short, is that we actually partnered with James Beard Foundation, Sodexo, and Lean Path to create a reopening guide for restaurants. And part of what we're finding is that some of the natural decisions that restaurants are making right now are actually really beneficial when it comes to wasting less food. You know, smaller menus is a key example. And you know, leading away from self-service and buffets. And I hope, since I know we have a large food service crowd here, that in the creativity of thinking forward, you know, see this as an opportunity to, you have a lot of social license right now.
Oh, it looks like Dana may have frozen a bit. I'm going to just take a moment here. I hate to cut in on this amazing panel, super inspirational. And I will say we're going to continue the conversation with Joel and Dana at a book signing afterwards. Don't go anywhere. I just wanted to give a couple notes and tips about what you can do at the upcoming break to make the most of your time. As you see, time goes by very fast. So at the upcoming break, you'll be able to do one-on-one networking where you can chat with somebody. The theme for this week is plants versus plant-based. We'll also have an expo where you can go to different sponsor booths to see culinary demonstrations if you want more of those, as well as presentations on key themes and important takeaways. And final reminder that if you engage in these things, you have an opportunity to win free travel and a ticket to Menus of Change 2021. So with that, I'm going to send it back to Kate for a quick wrap up, and we're going to do a quick fire round.
Okay, good. Dana, I wanted to make sure that you were able to say where people can access the reopening guide that you collaborated on with JBF and Cisco.
Yeah.
So she's posting that for all of you in the chat. I'm sorry we didn't have time to say more about that. But one thing that CIA did ask us to do was to give you all our top takeaways in 6 words or less. So we're going to do that. And perhaps if nothing else, you'll get it from that. And then stick with us. I'm going to actually tweet out most of what we discussed that we didn't get to today, because these folks had a whole lot more valuable things to say. So you can find me at the Kate Cox and I will do that. But top 6 takeaways, in 6 words or less. Derek, you're on.
Food waste starts with specs.
Joel.
Lead with helpful content.
Dana.
Be creative, flexible, and see opportunity.
Okay, and mine would be rethink contracts, invest in eater intelligence. And that's, I think, it for us.
That was amazing. Thank you guys so much. Again, amazing panel. Really enjoyed it. If you want to continue the conversation, come to the author talk in a couple minutes. The link is in the chat there. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day.